As a journalist, I've had the opportunity to travel across the globe to see far-flung destinations. I've chilled out in deserts, I've hung out in rainforests, and I've seen some of the great world cities. But today, we're going to explore my city, my hometown, my patch, my bit of turf. It's Dublin in 24 hours. Now your first stop is right here in the hotel before you even left the Gresham. It's Irish breakfast. Sausage, rashers, blood pudding, white pudding, hash brown, eggs, the works. It's probably Irish cuisine's most famous export. It's absolutely delicious, and it'll give you plenty of sustenance for your day exploring Dublin City. Now, my top tip on where to stay in Dublin City is the Gresham Hotel, located right in the heart of the action on O'Connell Street. It's a partner hotel with RIT, and this landmark building has stunning period features, including beautiful Waterford chandeliers hanging from the ceilings above you. And if you want to splash a little bit of cash, the penthouse suites here are pretty spectacular, with views looking out over at both Dublin City and also the Dublin Mountains.
It's the only hotel in the main street in Dublin. You've got other iconic buildings right beside us. You've got the GPO, which is across the street. You have the Cleary's department store, which is across from the GPO. So you have a lot of major buildings in the locality as well. And then we're smack bang in the city centre. The art was assembled in the early 60s. It was a government initiative to help struggling artists and promote Irish art. And we have quite a large collection, and everybody that has owned the hotel since the 60s have actually added to it. Over the latter couple of years before Rio took over, I collected the latter pieces, like you see the big paintings of Kevin Sharkey's and people like that.
The first stop on your tour of Dublin in 24 hours is actually located just across the road from the Gresham, on the other side of O'Connell Street. It's the GPO Witness History Visitor Centre, which tells the story of contemporary Irish culture, and also won the Micheletti Award at the European Museum Awards recently, which rewards innovation in museums about contemporary culture. Let's go check it out.
The GPO itself was headquarters of the 1916 Easter Rising, which was a famous event in Irish history, which eventually led to our independence as a nation. And the Visitor Centre tells the story of this important moment in Irish history, and it also covers modern Irish history from the late 1800s right up to today. So if you're coming to Dublin and you want to learn about modern Irish history, what better place to learn it than in the GPO, which is such a famous building in Irish history. Well, with the commemorations coming up the centenary in 2016, An Post, who own the building, they are the Postal Service in Ireland, and the Irish government were looking at ways to commemorate that period in Irish history. So the planning stage was back in 2012, and they decided to open up a visitor centre in this famous building, and it took 3 years then to construct. The building itself has won numerous awards for both its architecture and design. It's been a great success. Year one, year two last year, great numbers coming in, and we're having a very successful year this year as well in year three. And it's a permanent attraction, will always be here. The GPO itself is celebrating 200 years since the original opening of the building back in 1818. It was practically destroyed in 1916 and reopened again in 1929. So the building as it is today is the building from 1929. The GPO itself is still one of the oldest, still functioning general post offices in the world. The visitor centre then, as I said, covers the history of modern Irish history. And then we have a centrepiece film which lasts 17 minutes long, which brings you inside the GPO and Dublin on the week of the Easter Rising. It's very spectacular, especially commissioned for the project.
Stop number 2 on our tour of Dublin is the first of 2 cathedrals we're going to see, Christ Church Cathedral. It's the oldest building in Dublin and is renowned for its architectural design, its exquisite floor tiles on the interior, and also its 12th century crypt, which is both the largest and the oldest in both the UK and Ireland.
This is one of the oldest working structures in Dublin. It's over 1,000 years old, so we have a huge amount of history here. This originally would have been a wooden structure, but as the Normans came over in 1169, the fabric of the cathedral changed. 250,000 visitors pass through our door each year. We've gone up by 36% in the last 3 years, so we're doing exceptionally well, as you can tell from our queues out the door here. But not only do we have great staff working here, but we have the Dean of Christ Church who would do regular services here. So what people like is that they can sit down, they can attend a service whilst also doing a guided tour. So it's a unique experience. We get visitors from all across the world, from Americans, Canadians, Norwegians. So it's quite a popular historical attraction.
The second cathedral is St Patrick's Cathedral, which has been part of Ireland's story for 800 years. It's the national cathedral of the Church of Ireland and also Ireland's largest church. Jonathan Swift, the author of Gulliver's Travels, was also the dean here in the 1700s and is actually buried on site.
And the history of the cathedral is it's here since 1191, built in the English Gothic style, in the shape of a cross always pointing to the east, the birthplace of Christ. Of course, most famously here is St Patrick himself. It's said he was on this site around 360 AD. The site where he baptised Christianity is said to be on this site, so there would be a place of worship here since the time of St Patrick.
In 1780, John Jameson threw open the doors of his distillery right here in Bow Street in Dublin 7. 200 years later, and it's still open for business. You can drop in for a variety of different experiences: a cocktail masterclass, a distillery tour, or you can actually draw your own whiskey straight from the cask.
So we're currently in the spiritual home of Jameson, where John Jameson and his wife Margaret moved over from Scotland in 1780 and set up shop. At the time the distillery was a 5-acre site, it was a city within a city. And then fast forward almost 240 years, we're here delivering amazing brand experiences for the very many people, 350,000 in fact, visitors who come from all over the world to visit us here today. We've just finished an €11 million refurbishment, opened on St Patrick's Day last year, and we've got 5 really brilliant interactive immersive experiences. So our flagship Bow Street experience, so that's pretty much everybody who comes to the door will do that, or a large proportion tells our story, goes into our production process, and you get to learn about our taste. You do a comparative tasting, and then at the end everybody gets a complimentary daily grog or Jameson Ginger Lime as part of their ticket price. So if you're a real whiskey connoisseur, and you probably already maybe know a little bit about the production process, and you want to go in, deep dive a little bit further, you can come in here and do our Whiskey Makers, which is our whiskey blending class, and it's hosted in this room, so you can see the setup here. You spend about an hour in here, and you deconstruct. It's full sensory. You can see even some of the setup. It's almost lab-like, where you get to blend your own whiskey as a keepsake of your time here spent at Jameson Distillery in Bow Street. Yeah, so we're seeing a large proportion of visitors from the United States and Canada as well. It's very much an emerging market, with the direct flights coming in as well. So it's fantastic, and we look forward to welcoming a lot more Canadian and North American visitors.
Yeah, it's quite packed weekend.
After sampling some whiskey at Jameson's, next up is EPIC, the Irish Emigration Museum, which aims to shine a light on the contribution of Ireland globally, not least to Canada.
EPIC was opened in May 2016. It's owned by a man called Neville Isdell. Neville Isdell is an Irish immigrant himself. He came from Downpatrick and had been the CEO of Coca-Cola for many years before. He bought this piece of property here, the vaults, in the CHQ building, this area downstairs. He then turned into a dream that he had for a while, which was to open up his own Irish Emigration Museum and really pay tribute to that part of Irish culture that he was so fascinated with, the story of the Irish immigrant. The emigration to Canada is a major part of this exhibition, and in fact one of the first immigrants that you meet when you come in is a man called Abbe Thomas Quinn, who was a man of God who left Ireland as a young child during the Irish famine. He emigrated to Nicollet in Canada, one of those famous Irish coffin ships, and went on to spread the word of God through the French that he learned from the monks that worked in the monastery there.
I had known more suffering and sorrow than any soul should witness in a lifetime. My unfortunate parents were among more than 3,000 who died on Grosse Ile in 1847. Before the priest ministered to him, my father told me, "Remember your soul and your liberty." I am forever indebted to those courageous clerics. They found my brother and me new parents, though we kept our last name. Patrick and I grew up together, speaking French to be educated in a seminary. We have honored our father's words and repaid our debt to the church.
Now, after a long day of sightseeing, you're definitely going to have worked up a thirst, and I know just the place to quench it. Right beside Epic Ireland is Urban Brewing, which has a really cool interior in these vaults here inside. It also has a sunny terrace, it has an excellent menu, and most importantly, the pints are epic. Let's launch it.
So we're about to celebrate our first year anniversary. That's going to happen 31st of August. And our concept actually is, so we're actually bringing together brewing and hospitality. So we actually have a microbrewery on site. And we actually have a restaurant and a tapa style bar. So we actually can accommodate up to 500 people, depending what they like. They can have either like a more lighter meals, or they can actually have a proper restaurant a la carte meal. At the moment you're actually drinking Epic, so actually Epic is our collaboration with the Epic Immigration Museum. So we actually the concept actually behind our brewery is that we do small batches, and when one beer is actually finished, it's probably gonna be finished forever.
After dinner, it's time for Dublin's finest export, pints of Guinness. Now, there's literally hundreds of places around town I could recommend. One of my very favourites is the Oak. Why? It's got a beautiful interior, a mix of oak and also a bit of a new world twist. But most importantly for me, and probably for you as well, the pint of Guinness is excellent. And it's a perfect place to start your exploration of Dublin City by night. Let's launch it.